since it's also an eclipse and a new moon, the energy is actually very quiet right now, despite this like huge tsunami of a knowing that something's coming in this Aquarian reset of the solar eclipse, this reset of like the mind and understanding our choice of how we're using our minds in every moment moves into Pisces, which brings us back into that state of, oh, universal love. And then Moon moves into Aries and makes that conjunction to Saturn-Neptune and says, wow, I'm acting on what I want, even if I have no idea what this is going to turn into or become. And then after that, it's like, oh, pretty quickly on Friday, you're going to know. It's the same thing you've been doing this whole time. It's not like you're going to start acting differently, but there's very likely going to be something that makes you feel like it's real now. We have a solar eclipse in the sign of Aquarius on Tuesday. And then we have Saturn and Neptune making a new phase conjunction to each other on Friday. My heart is beating very fast as I say this. This is the astrology that I've been waiting for. This is the astrology that I think many, many people have been waiting for. But as I say that, as I reflect on it, it dawns on me how intellectual astrology has become for me, a algorithmic waiting game instead of a tool for liberation, as I think it will always be, right? I think humans have more free will than we realize. And with that power, we choose to play out the same patterns and the same loops. Nothing inherently will kick us out of a loop. A recursion is a self-referential system, and that is essentially what astrology is and does, and will show you regardless of what you're bringing to it. And I find that changes really only happen, for the most part, once you feel you've exhausted something, once you really just don't care anymore about the consequences. But it's hard to say with a week like this what I think is going to happen because I don't know. With astrology like this, it almost backfires to give any advice. I feel like my relationship to astrology is changing very, very deeply, and I need to start reflecting it. Part of it is just being online with astrology. I recently moved. I'm seeing people a lot more now, just in general. And it's just a place where I interact with a lot more people. And therefore, I'm talking to people in real life about astrology much more now, which brings astrology now into a much more embodied place. Whereas for the last 5 years, it's been almost completely online for me. As I think many people that I know have also experienced. Right? Astrology itself, again, an Aquarian theme. But again, here's the thing, these Aquarian things, they themselves need to be shaken up. And I think we see that with Pluto being in Aquarius. And so, to that end, on Friday, I'm hosting a very casual, free meetup in New York City to talk about the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. And it's not me giving a talk or anything. It's like people who are interested in astrology will gather and talk. Um, I'll link the event page in the description below if you'd like to join. I really see that tracking also in the Saturn-Neptune conjunction happening at the very first, that 0 degrees of Aries, because Aries is the living breath. And until now, for the last few years, we've been in this very dark phase of Saturn, Neptune. And I don't mean that in a judgmental, moralistic sense. I mean that in a balsamic sense of the planets Saturn and Neptune, two of the most important. I mean, they're all important. Saturn being reality, like your bones, like where are you? Saturn will tell you where you are physically. Neptune will tell you the vision that you're here to see out, to see through. And when these two planets are in a balsamic relationship to each other, we don't really know why we're here anymore. We don't really know what's going on. In a sense, it's been finished. Whatever it was that started at the last cycle 36 years ago has already come to full fruition, has already begun to decay, and at this point is doesn't exist anymore, right? And so building systems up until now, up until this Friday, I won't say is fruitless. It's not, but I think maybe that's why there's been such a strong capability for so many people to be online with each other and for that to actually feel like it's enough. But I think for so many reasons, starting Friday, people are going to be wanting to be in flesh and blood, building dreams. And it's not to say you can't build a dream through computers, of course not. That's silly. How you're building that, like the actual steps that you're taking, are going to kind of demand your blood. That sounds like a lot, but they're going to kind of demand I'm here using because Saturn in Aries is very much so the energy of the emperor that just knows how to delegate and knows knows how to use every single moment, right? And Mars ruling Aries, Mars being in Aquarius right now says it's all of us. It's not one person sitting on a soapbox talking, and if it is, for whatever they're saying to be sustainable, it must be engaged. It's no longer just an attempt to win over the algorithm and make sure you have an audience for what you're saying. People aren't going to care anymore. If there isn't a through line, which is genuinely inclusive of everybody, everybody you feel is in your group. Maybe that is, I would say. So, Venus on the North Node, it's really, my friend just earlier was texting me about the unbearable lightness of being. And that's kind of how I feel. Like, I don't feel it's unbearable, but the lightness of love and the lightness of truth in Pisces, of like limitless truth in Pisces, can feel unbearable right now because these are the last 5 days before we begin to build something extraordinarily tangible in the present moment. And the implications for the next 36 years are pretty crazy. Because if you think about it, what we're finishing right now started with a Saturn-Neptune conjunction in the sign of Capricorn, which was ruled by Saturn in Capricorn, which means time itself, which is a Capricorn archetype, time and space and materiality itself were the point. Climbing the ladder has been the point until now. From now for the next 36 years, I haven't checked when the next or where the next Saturn-Neptune conjunction will take place in, but for the next 36 years, this is happening in Aries. So we're building out the dream through the present moment, through blood, like through action, through immediacy, through impulsivity, through putting your hand on a fire and realizing you don't want to put your hand on a fire anymore. So leadership in this way is leadership by example. It's not leadership by heaviness, this distortion of Capricorn, which we've seen all the more because Pluto has been there since 2008. And it's not there anymore, but it's been there. This Capricorn part of our charts of the world has been the amount it has been through and the how much it has been transforming. I still don't think that we understand. If you're still like living in a body, I don't know, maybe you know. I don't know. But I don't think that I know. I think I have a sense but I don't think I can articulate it. I think that articulation, that understanding is going to come when Pluto's like 10 degrees into Aquarius. Because if you think about it, Pluto's at like 4 degrees or something now, which is still within 5 degree orb of Capricorn, of 29 degrees of Capricorn. So I'm just saying, it's really like you really just trust yourself now. I'm not saying stop studying astrology. I'm not saying stop using it. I'm not going to stop being an astrologer. But what I'm striving for, what I'm wanting to practice more than anything is this truth that the truth is not more complex. Real truth only becomes more and more simple. This idea that more complexity means more sophistication or higher knowledge or something like this, again, is a very Capricornian paradigm. And it is even a very Aquarian paradigm because at one point, using the mind to do things was more like a higher perspective. But it's a recursion. So we're just going to keep looping back and back around, which I think is why it's been so important up until this point in my life. I wonder that this deep felt sense of like unconditional love and acceptance has been so important to have reinforced and almost habituated in our life experience. Because now there's still nothing to achieve. There's still nothing to achieve. There won't be anymore. I think the questions I'm asking myself are, what do I want my life to look like? And instead of projecting 5 or 10 years into the future, I have to confront what I want right now. That the deepest thing of what I want right now. And then I have to not judge that. And then I have to listen. I don't have to act on it, but I have to listen. I have to let it push me. If I have resistance to that, I have to let that war happen within me. Also an Aries thing. But it's the Aquarian perspective that allows me to step back and just watch it happen and recognize that I'm all of it. Not to a point of inaction, but to a point of responsibility for what's true for me right here and right now. And that's all I think we can and should expect of each other. This week, this time, this is the seeding moment for the next 36 years. You can still love something and want something and have your own very personal goals and be moving towards something, but holding on to that with the utmost self-compassion, giving yourself space and time to return to that point of knowing as this Friday rolls around will set the tone for the next like literally 36 years.